The ballroom smells like money pretending to be clean. It's champagne and citrus peel, polished marble and designer perfume, sweet notes layered over the faint chemical bite of fresh varnish. Even the air feels staged. Crestline Aerospace has rented the entire top floor of the Meridian Grand, a glass-walled venue that floats above the city like a private cloud. Outside, winter presses its palm to the windows. Inside, heat and light and applause are manufactured in perfect cycles. I stand in the shadows behind a lighting truss, wearing black from throat to ankle, a headset looped around my neck like a leash. On my lanyard, my name reads E. Carter, AV Assist. Small letters. Small role. That's how you survive among powerful people. You make yourself part of the furniture, the kind they lean on without ever seeing. A row of chandeliers hangs overhead, each one a frozen explosion of crystals. Under them, guests drift like polished sharks, investors, senators, celebrity philanthropists. Their smiles are wide and rehearsed, the kind you practice in mirrors because you're not actually happy, you're just signaling that you belong. The stage is a cathedral of screens. Crestline's logo rotates on a giant lead wall in slow, hypnotic loops, silver wings unfurling, a slogan beneath it in glowing white. Safety is our legacy. I almost choke. My fingers tighten around a coiled cable, rubber biting into my skin. The cable is warm from the lights. My palms are cold anyway. On stage, Nolan Creed paces with the calm confidence of a man who has never had to clean up his own mess. He wears a midnight suit and a smile that looks custom-made, straight teeth, gentle eyes, a little laugh that lands like reassurance. The media loves him for that. They call him America's aviation visionary. They say he brings families closer. They don't say he brought mine to a morgue. I keep my eyes on the screens because if I look directly at Nolan's face too long, the past opens like a wound. The MC in a gold dress calls for attention. "Please welcome," she sings, "the man redefining the future of flight, Mr. Nolan Creed." Applause rises. Real, loud, eager. A sound like a wave slamming into a shore that can't move. Near the front table, my brother Jason claps hardest. He's in a tailored suit, hair perfect, jaw clenched in that proud way he gets when he's standing close to power. His badge reads Crestline Corporate Communications. He is Nolan's voice, his shield, his excuse machine. Jason doesn't know I'm here. If he did, he'd pull me out by my elbow like I'm a drunk guest, like I'm a liability. Or maybe he does know, deep down, and he's trained himself not to. Nolan leans into the mic. "Tonight," he says, "we celebrate progress. We celebrate the men and women who dare to challenge gravity itself." The room laughs politely. Nolan's eyes flick toward the cameras. He knows exactly where to look. He knows how to appear humble without ever shrinking. "People think safety is boring," he continues. "They think it's paperwork, red tape. Critics love to wave caution signs and call it virtue. There it is, the insult, slipped in like poison under a sweet drink. I feel my jaw tighten, my chest goes hollow. Paperwork, red tape. That's what the crash investigators called the internal memos too, back when anyone still pretended to care. My father died on Flight 616 because of paperwork. He was sitting in seat 18A aisle because he liked to get up and stretch his legs. He'd texted me from the gate, "Weather looks rough." "Don't worry, I'll land before you finish dinner." I never finished dinner. The last time I heard his voice was through a voicemail recorded midair, not screaming. Worse, controlled fear, the kind you hear in pilots when they're trying to keep everyone calm while the plane becomes something else. "Evie," he'd said, my childhood name slipping out like a prayer, "something's wrong. They're telling us it's fine, but..." A jolt in the audio, a woman gasping. Metal groaning the way a bridge groans before it gives, then static. The official report came later, thick and sterile. Unexpected mechanical anomaly. The news cycle moved on. Nolan Creed went on talk shows and said the right words with the right face. "Our hearts are broken. We will learn. Safety is sacred." Jason believed him. Jason needed to. It was easier than believing our father had been sacrificed for profit. On stage, Nolan lifts a glass of champagne. It glitters like melted coins. He smiles as if he's blessing the room. To the future, he says, to flight without fear, to safety forever. The audience rises again, glasses raised. Crystal clinks like tiny bells. In my earpiece, the stage manager calls cues. Lights soften, music swells. And in my pocket, my phone vibrates once, my timer armed, my broadcast package queued, my proof waiting like a blade in velvet. I watch Nolan's throat as he swallows. Then very quietly, so only my own bones can hear it, I whisper, "Enjoy it because it ends tonight." 6 months earlier. I learned how easily people confuse small with safe. Crestline didn't hire me as an engineer. They hired me as a pair of hands, someone to coil cables, swap batteries, run audio lines through ceilings like veins. I took the job through an event contractor, the kind that gives you a black polo and tells you to never make eye contact with executives. Perfect. Crestline's campus smelled like new carpet and server heat. White halls, glass offices, everything bright enough to bleach out doubt. In the lobby, Nolan Creed's quote was etched in steel. "Safety is our legacy." The letters looked scrubbed, too clean to be human. I wore a visitor badge and a neutral face. Inside, I built a map, doors that clicked slowly, cameras that blinked, corners where security guards lingered with coffee and boredom. Systems always confess their weak points. People do too. Jason found out a week in. He called after midnight, voice tight, like he was already bracing for impact. "Tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing." "I'm working," I said. "That's it. That's Crestline," he snapped. "That's my company." "It was Dad's coffin," I said before I could stop myself. Silence. Then, softer like soft could fix anything, Jason whispered, "Evie, Flight 616 was investigated. Nolan didn't, he couldn't." "You don't know what you're defending," I said. "I know Nolan," he insisted, as if the sentence was a shield. "He visits victims' families, he pays for scholarships, he's not a villain." I let the anger stay refrigerated. "You're his voice," I said. "That's why you believe him." Jason exhaled hard. "You're paranoid, you're jealous that I built a career. You want someone to blame because grief feels better when it has a face." The words landed like a bruise, not because they were true, because I realized my brother had become a wall. A beautiful, polished wall with Crestline's logo stamped on it. After that, I stopped arguing. I just worked. By day, I helped wire Crestline's Project Halo, Roadshow, Nolan's upcoming miracle safety system, the one he'd unveil at the Gala. By night, I hunted the real story of Flight 616 inside the places executives never look. Backstage racks, demo rigs, forgotten laptops. The mechanical flaw had a name in internal notes, Sable 7. A control actuator program, dry words for something that mattered when the sky turned violent. The difference between correction and catastrophe. I found the trail not through Hollywood hacking, but through negligence. An engineer left a diagnostic laptop plugged into the demo rig. VPNs still live. The screen dimmed, waiting. I didn't break in. I woke it up. On the desktop sat a folder, Halo Metrics. Inside, buried like a bone under flowers, was an older directory, 616 historical. My throat tightened. My hands stayed steady. I copied what mattered. Maintenance deferral logs, a risk memo stamped high, a spreadsheet labeled delay versus liability. Then the thing that made my skin go cold, emails. From a VP to Nolan, Sable 7 failure probability is unacceptable. Recommend grounding affected fleet. Nolan's reply, one line, cleaner than a knife. "No, we fly." Manage the language. As I zipped the files onto my drive, a badge reader clicked outside the door. A security guard's boots scraped tile. The sound was casual, almost bored, but it shot straight into my spine. I killed the screen, shoved the drive into my bra strap, and rolled a cable cart into the doorway just as his flashlight swept in. "AV storage," I said, yawning like I didn't have a pulse. He glanced at the cart, glanced at my lanyard, and yawned back. "Don't leave anything plugged in," he muttered, already walking away. Footsteps faded. I pushed my cart forward, head down, becoming the harmless AV girl again. A door opened behind me. "Hey," a voice called, Jason. I stopped slowly, lifting a coil of cable like proof of innocence. Jason's gaze flicked to the demo rig, then to me. "What are you doing back here?" he asked. "Cables," I said lightly. "Show prep," he stepped closer. "You've been around a lot." "It's literally my job to be around," I said, and smiled small, the kind of smile that invites underestimation. His eyes searched my face, trying to find the sister he remembered. "Don't do anything stupid," he said quietly. "If you go after Nolan, you'll get crushed." And his voice fractured on the last word. "I can't lose you too." For a second, I almost told him everything. I almost handed him the truth and begged him to choose it. But loyalty isn't logic. "It's a sedative," so I nodded. "I won't," I lied. That night in my apartment, I encrypted the files and mirrored them to a dead-drop server. I printed the key email and sealed it in a fireproof envelope. Evidence secured. Then I sat on my kitchen floor and cried, not for Dad, not even for Nolan, for Jason. Because I had the red file, and my brother was still guarding the wrong man. The Q light on my console blinks green GO, like permission. From behind the curtains, I watch the ballroom. Chandeliers sweating light, champagne flutes catching it, faces practiced into joy. Heat hangs in the air with perfume and cologne. Luxury always smells like something trying to cover something else. Nolan Creed returns to the podium, smiling as if gravity is a negotiation. The giant screen behind him loops a wing-shaped device spinning in slow motion. "Project Halo," he says, velvet-voiced, "is peace of mind. The end of fear." My father's last voicemail flickers behind my eyes, static, a gasp, metal groaning. I swallow it down. Rage wastes oxygen, precision doesn't. Jason stands near the stage, ready to clap on cue, eyes bright with belief. He still thinks Nolan is the kind of man who grieves with you, not over you. Nolan chuckles. I know there have been questions. People who don't understand aviation love words like defect and risk. A polite laugh ripples through the room. "But progress," Nolan continues, "demands courage. It demands we ignore the alarmists." Alarmists. I tap the macro button I buried in the lighting sequence, Q7. Nobody audits the assistant's cues. Nobody imagines the quiet tech girl has teeth. The ballroom audio dies mid-breath. The quartet collapses into silence. The only sound is ice shifting in glasses. Nolan's smile freezes. He glances toward the AV booth like he can stare someone into obedience. The LED wall flickers once, then turns black. Then the first document appears, white page, clinical font, a red stamp across the top. Flight 616, Sable 7 actuator override request, high risk. Gasps come in small pieces. Phones begin to chime, sharp alerts, as the same packet lands in inboxes throughout the room. Journalists, donors, board members, and guests Nolan didn't realize were watching. On the screen, a maintenance memo loads. My old signature sits at the bottom. Urgent is stamped across it in thick red. Nolan clears his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is..." The next page cuts him off, an email thread. "To operations from Nolan Creed subject, fleet continuity." His reply is one sentence. "No, we fly." Manage the language. The room doesn't applaud. It doesn't even breathe properly. Nolan stabs at his clicker. Nothing changes. He laughs too sharply. "This is a malicious fabrication." The audio file plays. "Not stage Nolan. Hallway Nolan. Real Nolan. Delays cost more than lawsuits. Grounding costs reputation. If it fails, we call it an anomaly." Someone sobs. A sponsor whispers, "Oh my God," like he's watching an autopsy in real time. Jason's hands stop mid-clap. Color drains from his face. He stares at the screen, then at Nolan, then down at his phone, scrolling like the truth might change if he reads fast enough. He looks up, and his gaze finds me in the shadows. Recognition hits him slowly, the way anesthesia wears off. Confusion first, then pain. "No," he mouths. "Evie." I step out into the aisle. The crowd parts. Not out of respect, out of instinct. Truth is a kind of hazard. I walk forward with my headset still around my neck, my badge swinging, my hands still smelling faintly of cable rubber. Nolan watches me now, eyes narrowing, charm failing to assemble. You called us alarmists, I say, voice steady in the silence I created. My father wasn't an anomaly. He was the cost you approved. Jason makes a broken sound. Evelyn, what did you do? His voice cracks on my name. I don't look away from Nolan. I stopped you from writing the same obituary again. At the back of the ballroom, the doors open hard. No velvet, no ceremony. Federal agents step in with badges raised. An FAA investigator follows, carrying a folder thick enough to bury someone in. Nolan Creed, the lead agent calls, you are under arrest for falsifying safety records, obstruction, and criminal negligence. Jason sinks into a chair, hands over his face. Shoulders shaking as the truth finally hits full dose. My heartbeat stays steady, but my throat burns. I taste champagne on the air like spilled fuel, and I finally let myself blink. Nolan takes one step back, and the stage lights paint him in harsh white, stripping him of his glow. His empire doesn't collapse with an explosion. It collapses with handcuffs clicking in a room that used to clap. 6 months later, the Meridian Grand stopped glowing in my memory and started smelling like a crime scene. Stale champagne, hot LEDs, and panic trapped in velvet. Crestline tried to cauterize the wound with statements. Out-of-context materials. A former contractor. A coordinated attack. But the red file had already multiplied, mirrored across newsrooms and regulators, impossible to unsend. The FAA grounded the Sable 7 fleet by sunrise. By noon, the board placed Nolan on medical leave, the corporate euphemism for exile. Sponsors peeled their logos off Crestline like bandages ripped too fast. I took my skills to a watchdog firm, wiring safer systems, teaching young techs that silence is also a choice every day. Jason didn't call for 3 weeks. When he finally showed up at my apartment, he looked smaller, as if the suit had been taken off him and he didn't know what shape his body was without it. Rain clung to his hair. His eyes were red in a way that wasn't from weather. I thought you hated me, he said. I thought you'd never wake up, I answered. He held out an envelope, my printed email, now copied and stamped by investigators, the same sentence that had ended Dad. No, we fly, manage the language. I defended him, Jason whispered, voice splitting. I used my voice to bury you, to bury Dad. I kept telling myself you were just stuck in grief. I watched his hands shake. They were our father's hands, only softer. I wasn't stuck, I said gently. I was awake. Jason swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Evie. The apology landed heavy, not as a cure, but as a diagnosis finally spoken out loud. I don't deserve you. I didn't hug him, not yet. Some wounds close, but the skin never forgets the cut. Still, I stepped aside and let him in because love doesn't die. It just changes its posture. A year after the gala, Nolan Creed was sentenced. The courtroom photos showed him without stage light, pale and ordinary. The kind of man you'd never fear if you didn't know what he'd ordered people to ignore. When the judge read the names of the dead, Nolan stared at the table like it might forgive him. That afternoon, I drove to the Flight 616 memorial by the river. Metal wings curved upward from stone, catching wind like a choir that refused to be quiet. I set a single white rose beneath my father's name. The petals felt cold, like paper. Jason stood a few steps behind me, silent. I didn't save him, I said to the stone, but I stopped you from becoming a statistic you decall acceptable. The river kept moving. The city kept breathing, and in that steady motion, I finally understood the only thing that survives every crash: truth.